What's up? It's the Benchwarmers, and today we're going to be reacting to the amazing Bucks versus Nets series that just happened in the second round. It was an amazing series that went the distance to Game 7 through injuries, a struggle, road teams winning games. Everything happened, but Game 7 was ultimately an amazing game to watch. It was probably go down as one of the most historically great series of all time, and at least in this era. So, without further ado, let's get to our reactions.
So this game was really crazy overall. I think Kevin Durant had an amazing game. He played the whole game actually. He played 53 minutes in total and he had 48 points, which is the record for any game 7. He also shot 47% from the field and had 9 rebounds and 6 assists, which are all amazing stats. So you may be surprised why the Nets lost, and unfortunately he didn't have good support. Joe Harris and James Harden did not fulfill their ends of the bargain, and they both only shot 30% from the field, which definitely brought down the overall Nets offense. But then if you look at the Bucks, Giannis played 50 minutes, almost as much as Kevin Durant, and he had 40 points and he shot 63%. He actually airballed a free throw and shot poorly in the first half from the free throw line, which was like 1 for 6. But then in the second half, he really made up for that by shooting 7 for 8 and making shots when it mattered. And then Drew Holiday shot pretty poorly. He shot only 22%, but he made some important baskets in the fourth quarter and played good defense. And Middleton actually had a game-winning shot, which also showed that he can make clutch shots. And Brooke Lopez blocked KD near the end of overtime. So I think the Bucks and Nets, like, they weren't playing that well, like in the first and third quarters. But I think the Bucks were the team that really started to show up in the fourth quarter and overtime, which ultimately gave them the edge. But it was a great game.
Yeah, it's definitely something which shows the maturity of the Bucks team. They've gone through some tough series, like the one versus the Raptors in 2019, and then the one versus the Heat in 2020. And going through that adversity has definitely led them to grow. They focused a lot less on the regular season this year, and that experimentation is working for them in the playoffs. However, I'm going to be talking about the Nets offseason. So obviously they were the favorite by far to win the championship, and they obviously didn't win. So they have to make some changes in the offseason, right? They are currently in a cap nightmare without signing anybody. I think they're already at 150 to 160 million dollars, so which is over the salary cap, and it's already approaching luxury tax levels. So they have to be very careful with what they do in the offseason so as to allow the owners to be fine and put themselves in championship worthy positions. So specifically, there's 3 players I want to talk about. Spencer Dinwiddie, who was injured for the entire season. He's a very good player. He has averaged, he has been in 6 man of the year conversations. He has averaged like 16 to 18 points a game and has been really serviceable at times. But he is coming off a major injury, and he just opted out. So the Nets will need to have some really good luck in either having really loyal Spencer Dinwiddie, but looking like this, Spencer Dinwiddie is most likely to be opting out unless the Nets go even further into the luxury tax in order to pay him. Additionally, they're most likely going to lose Blake Griffin, who was their starting center for most of the playoffs. He played, I think, 30 to 40 minutes per game. And even though he is old, he was very serviceable. He had some signature plays like that dunk on Giannis in game 2. But he's most likely gone the opposite. He signed like a minimum deal. He's probably going to get $5 to $10 million on some terrible team. And Bruce Brown, who was really clutch for them, he actually made the only basket for them in overtime, and he was one of their key defensive pieces. I know the Nets weren't a great defensive team, but they would have been even worse if they didn't have Bruce Brown. Bruce Brown has a qualifying offer of about $5 million if he accepts that, which he probably is because he seemed pretty loyal in the post-game interview. Then that'll be a really good piece for the Nets to have for the foreseeable future. So the Nets in the offseason, besides keeping their players, should be trying to fix their biggest issues, rebounding and defense. And what that requires is a good defensive big. So getting big bodies like Nerlens Noel, Serge Ibaka, Hassan Whiteside, or DeMarcus Cousins, players like that who can just fit that mold, play with that championship level team. Most of these guys have some experience. Nerlens Noel probably still needs some experience. Or just committing to Nick Claxton. Play him 35 minutes a game. See what happens. Make sure he doesn't get into foul trouble. Commit millions of dollars of the offseason training into Nick Claxton for the foreseeable future so that he can be that centerpiece. He can be that Andre Drummond sort of role on that Nets team.
Yeah, I think about the Nets one. When the James Harden trade happened, I kind of said if they don't win this year, I think it's kind of over for them. So I'm really, really nervous for what's going to happen next year and in the foreseeable future. But hopefully they can get a big man, as you said, and continue to be successful. But I'm going to talk about the Bucks going forward. They have an interesting series against the Hawks coming up. If you told me the Hawks were going to make the conference finals at the beginning of the season, I would have told you you're crazy, but it happened. But unfortunately, I don't think there's any way that the Hawks can beat this Bucks team because like no one on the team can really stop Giannis. I know Clint Capella is decent in the is like a decent paint defender, but John Collins and other Hawks players aren't going to be able to deal with Giannis outside of the paint. So the Bucks, if they rely on Giannis more, I think they should pretty easily win this series. When you look at the last game against the Nets, Giannis shot the same amount as Middleton and Drew Holiday pretty much, and Giannis scored a lot more. So I just think as they need to give Giannis more shots than the other players on the team, and I wouldn't be surprised if he averages like 40, 45 points across the series. And also on defense, the Bucks are one of the strongest teams in the NBA. Obviously, I think Drew Holiday is a great matchup on Trae Young. Like, Trae Young is a great player, but he's not Kevin Durant. I don't think he's going to have games like the game 7 that KD just had. So overall, the Bucks are just incredible on the on offensive and defensive side of the ball, and I think they could be favorites to win not only the conference finals but also the whole NBA finals. But that wraps it up for this reaction to the Bucks Nets series. It was an amazing series, one of the best I've ever watched. This is the Benchwarmers signing out. See ya.